And the morning meeting is underway. Welcome, everybody. Sean, Tim, Mark. We've got so many topics to talk about today. We're never going to get to them all, but we do want to get to your questions. If you want to be part of it, raise your hand. We'll get as many of you in as we can. We're going to talk about JD Vance and whether he's single-handedly going to lose the election for Donald Trump over his remarks, which are not as much in the media as they are in social media and in conversations around the country, offending parents, step-parents, and women who struggle to have children, parents who've struggled, or couples who've struggled to have children, individuals. We're going to talk about the beep stakes and whether it's possible to pick somebody who has a vetting problem, whether in this day and age against Donald Trump, you can pick somebody with a problem. We're going to be a little bit backward looking and talk about both the Netanyahu speech yesterday with the meetings today, but also the Biden speech. We have strong feelings about that. And again, we'll take your questions. Lots we won't get to today, unfortunately, but we'll cover as much ground as we can. President photo op with Benjamin Netanyahu at 1 Eastern time. That is his only public event. The briefing's at 1:30. The vice president photo op with Netanyahu at 4:30. As far as we know right now, no events for Emhoff, Trump, or JD Vance. And the vice president is doing the teachers union event in Houston at 11 o'clock Eastern, and super curious to see about that. The organizing principle right now continues to be the fight to define Kamala Harris, and both the JD Vance and the deep state story play into that. So, guys, let's start with JD Vance. Doug Emhoff's talking about it. Jennifer Aniston is talking about it. Megan's raised this for us early. I don't want to mansplain on it, but I will say this is a massive story. And I've talked to some conservatives this morning who clearly are on the defensive. Tim Hogan was on CNN with Scott Jennings this morning, and I'm a pretty close reader of Scott's poker face. Scott tried to change the subject. He did not defend this. So I think Vance's instinct would be to go on Fox and ostensibly clean it up, but make it worse. So let's go to Sean, who knows something about it. Sean, does he need to fix this, and can he fix it given his general affect?
Well, I will say the first thing that comes to mind is funny. I just literally clicked on the live stream on my YouTube, and it's JD Vance advertising. So clearly they see the significance of being part of the morning meeting. Look, I talked to a lot of folks, part of the I will just keep it in Vance world last night about this based on Megan's take on this yesterday. And two things they said. Three things. One, obviously they're aware of the situation. Second, he was joking at the time he made that comment on Hannity, as we know, on Tucker rather. Whatever. The second thing is he said, look, JD Vance was raised by strong women with no father figure. There's no question he understands the importance of strong women in his life. And then third, to your point, we can expect to see him personally address this in the next few days. So just that's the lay of the land where there. I'm not even mansplaining. I'm just telling
Sean, Tim, 1 sec. Where would you advise him to do it? And what would you advise him to say? Because saying he likes strong women is not going to cut it, I don't believe. And going on conservative media, I don't think is going to cut it.
I just don't see the upside. I mean, look, I get and I've done this before, and I've advised clients. Sometimes you take the hit and you go on, the 60 Minutes or the CNN to take your medicine. I don't know that gets him anything. I think he needs to go somewhere where he gets the soundbite and people can pull from it saying he was done. So I don't know if that's Hannity or Jesse Waters or something like that. But I don't see the point.
If he does it on Fox, he's a moron, and he's not. Okay. He's very.
Please do it on
Hannity. I just don't see. Look, here's the problem. You go on a CNN, and that's not what they're gonna.
How about two-way? How about do it on two-way? Why don't you recommend that?
Hey, I got a show every night at 6 o'clock. I recommend.
Yeah. We don't just talk to him about it.
He should probably do it with the woman. Tim Hogan, what do you think about?
But I will say this, Mark. Hold on. One last point to your venue point. As you pointed out, there's a lot of this on social media. The idea of going on a venue that's digitally based might not be a bad idea. I mean, it's sort of in kind.
Yeah. If he does it on conservative media, again, to me, that's misunderstanding how big this problem is. Tim, how big a problem is this? Am I overstating it?
No, it's a huge problem. But and to Sean's point, look, I think sometimes it is smart to get the clip, to do it on a friendly outlet, a digital outlet, and it travels as it travels on social media and it gets legs. But I agree. He has to sit down and he has to talk to somebody about this and come up with a good message. And I don't think that's a good message. I will also say there is video coming out of him making similar comments in 2021, not as viral, not talking about childless cat ladies, but basically saying, look, people with kids, maybe they should have weighted votes. They can tell how to allocate their kids' votes.
Lori, our colleague Lori Blackford recommends a view, and I see the upside of that. but JD Vance on The
Oh my
View would
God.
be
Honest to God,
destroyed.
if
He'd be
JD goes on, wait,
destroyed.
hold on. No. If he went on The View, I wouldn't vote for. I mean, that's got it. That's a
Yeah.
that's
All right,
an
all right,
absolute
all right.
judgment.
We could talk about this for 10 episodes. Let's move on to the beefsteaks thing real quick. I believe that some of the people they really were focused on have vetting issues, and the vetters do not want to go name someone who's a problem. They're just starting to get their information. So let's not talk about specific candidates, because I'm not prepared to do that today. If you had someone who you wanted to pick who hadn't paid taxes on their household help, or had extramarital affairs, Tim, in this day and age, can you take a few Daily Mail stories and move on? Or would you say to the candidate, not worth the risk? We're trying to pick someone who's strong and we can't afford any controversy.
Not worth it. I think the rule is first, do no harm. There are other ways that the vice president can help you, but if it's a judgment call, if voters look at your judgment in picking someone and out of the gate you get a bunch of negative stories, that's bad. I mean, JD Vance is the perfect example. That's not biographical, but things that he's said have defined the Trump campaign in the last few days.
I think the answer is it depends what it is. Have you had some sort of infidelity that you've been forgiven for and it was 10 years ago? That's one thing versus, hey, I was doing something with my scheduler last week. That's a very different thing. I will say the other thing that I have found interesting, and I'll defer to Tim on this, the Shapiro issue. And you guys know that I have said, in my opinion, Shapiro would be the strongest. The backlash that I've seen among the left on Shapiro's what that would do to him among voters in Michigan because of his Jewish faith is, to me, unbelievable. I think fascinating. Also, one other side note, I don't want to go to rabbit hole. I was surprised to see that McCraven took himself out of something that we didn't even know he was in. Interesting thought, but I understand why you might. Anyway, I just thought it was fascinating. He popped his head up. Mark, I know you put it in your stack. Again, I don't want to comment on it, more of just like that was a name that I didn't hear much, and I don't know what it would have gotten you.
Right. They want a contrast. They want to say Harris had good judgment and picked someone great. Trump has bad judgment. He picked Vance. If they pick someone who starts with a bad story, not ideal. All right.
It depends on what that bad story is.
I hear you. Biden's speech. I think the press coverage is outrageous. It's outrageous. He's the commander. He's the commander in chief. There's strong indication that part of why he got out was because he's lost mental acuity. And the coverage, like the New York Times, the 10th paragraph is he didn't say why he got out. I think it is evidence, not just a bias.
But it's not just
against Republicans. Hold on. Let me just make one more point. It's not just bias. It shows that the Harris-Biden family is back in great graces with the press.
But it wasn't that he didn't just say the why, the LBJ march, hey, it's because of Vietnam. He literally said, I want to pass the torch. Okay, well, the torch has been standing there for 2 years and you didn't pass it. And you stood up until 72 hours ago. You told everyone you didn't need the torch. And now suddenly, I mean, it was ridiculous that he got a pass the way that he did. We wake up this morning hearing about this exercise that China and Russia is doing off the coast of Alaska. I think there's a reason that that's happening. It was embarrassing the way the Today Show covered it this morning. It's this historic,
not just the Today Show. Everybody. Tim,
he's talking about this the same way he launched his campaign. It is that
he is, but that's not what he owes him. That's not what he owes America.
God.
He's welcome to do what he wants, but the press coverage is an embarrassment. And again, if you're Kamala Harris. He didn't give an answer.
He said that the best opportunity for Democrats
snap out of it.
Wait. Then why did he 72 hours ago he was the strongest candidate ever, sharp as a tack, and now suddenly I got to pass a torch to a younger voice.
Ridiculous. Sean, what do you want to say about Netanyahu? You keep telling me you want to talk about Netanyahu. What do you want to say?
I just think real quickly. I mean, the stuff yesterday. I felt like he had been spending time watching every State of the Union. The way he used guests and it was literally like
he's a genius. He could be a presidential candidate in America. He could be a campaign manager. The guy totally gets it. And I'm super impressed.
You want the last thing I would just say, the press coverage of these protesters destroying American flags at Union Station, pulling things in. Those aren't protesters. And it was another despicable example of what's going on in our media today. I was embarrassed how that was.
They're not helping anybody. I mean, it was ridiculous. And honestly, it completely plays into Netanyahu's hands for him to come here and for those protests.
Yeah, totally. All right. If it were Bill Clinton or Barack Obama going to the teachers' unions today, you'd expect them to go in and say, I'm for school choice, and get a smattering of boos and say, see, I'm standing up for the parents. She will not be unleashing her inner Glenn Youngkin, as far as I know. And again, every day that goes by where she's letting them define her as a San Francisco radical liberal and she's not doing anything to push back, I think she runs the risk of the entire election being defined in the next 3 weeks. How could you, at a time when everybody's telling her to present something moderate, how could you go to the teachers union, assuming that's what she does, and not do anything to suggest moderation? Tim.
Okay, but so she is trying to rally the base, going to a 1.8 million member union, and she's supposed to alienate them in her first week. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I think there's a lot of like rallying of the base, getting the troops fired up to do here, and I also don't think school choice is the right way to do it. I don't disagree that like it's very wise for her to put out a few positions that give daylight between her and the current administration, take advantage of the fact that you're someone new. It's not entirely status quo. I don't think the teachers union, I don't think AFT is the right place to do it.
Sean?
I'm not surprised. How's that? I'll agree with Tim.
Yeah.
I think this is too early. She does run the risk that you're saying of further pushing that narrative, how about leftist she is, but I don't know that tonight was the right.
If that's the case, the notion that she's going to put Gina Raimondo on the ticket is absurd, because the unions would not like that.
I mean, look, as a Rhode Islander, you want to talk about job. I mean, you just nailed. I mean, Rhode Island state motto is you either work out of state or for the state.
I think it's Rhode Islandite. No. All right. Going to go to your questions now. Again, try to cover as much as we can. You can ask about or make a comment about stuff we've already talked about or something else in the news. Don't ask about sports, though. No time for that today. Marco, please unmute. Come on in. Tell us what's on your mind.
Hello. So thank you for letting me speak. My biggest worry with Biden before he dropped out was that he was too weak of a candidate to even have a victory that would calm the country. Like in the small chance that he did win, which was super small, no one was going to believe that it was a valid election, because the entire right that saw 2020 would go, how is it possible that non-compos mentis won the election? My concern now is either side at this point. Is there any election result that could, like, what's the margin that it would take to have the country be at peace? And
Yeah.
I would say, like, I know it's easy for, like, I'm a center right, but like I could easily make the Tim argument about the right losing its mind over, Kamala winning. But like, how would you address that on the left? And
Right.
Sean, how would you address that on the right? Like, what does it look like to have peace after this election?
Marco, I think if President Trump followed through on what I thought was the most important line from his acceptance speech, which is he wanted to be president for everybody, not half the country. But I haven't seen a lot of follow through on that. I think the margin will depend on Putin. Just kidding. Tim, what do you think?
Well, Margo, I'm actually curious, so you're center right, but where do you lean in this election now that it's Kamala and Trump?
No, I was never going to vote for Trump. I mean, I was looking at the Republican nomination, very excited for a bunch of different options and candidates.
What are you doing? Are you not voting?
Oh no, I'm registering and I'm voting for Kamala.
All right, folks, I got to stop everybody because the Emerson swing state polls are out. Here we go. Arizona, Trump 49, Harris 44. Georgia, Trump 48, Harris 46. Michigan, Trump 46, Harris 45. Pennsylvania, Trump 48, Harris 46. Wisconsin tied at 47. If I were Harris, I'd be happy with those numbers.
I would be very happy. I mean, look, this is 3 days, 4 days after a switch, and that's where we are. That is better than where Biden was polling at this point. There are no ads on the air right now for Kamala Harris. Now they need to get it together. They raised $126 million, and it's time to spend. But I'm happy with that as a starting point.
We're going to get a sugar high now. We're going to sugar high at the VP, and we're going to sugar high at the convention. I'll concede that right now, Your Honor.
Noah, I'm going to text these to you. See if you can get them up in a graphic real quick, because I'd love everybody to be able to study them. All right. Sean, do you want to comment on Marco's question?
I would just say, look, I think that the premise of Marco's question, when do we get peace? I don't know. It's not going to happen. It would have to be a massive blowout, which I don't see happening. And so I hate to be the bearer of bad news on a beautiful Thursday morning, but I don't see a scenario in which we wake up on November 6th and people are like, well, sorry, whatever side it is lost. It's just not going to happen.
I also think, like, and I don't mean this as a purely partisan comment, but I do think that any election that Donald Trump is in is going to be a massively negatively polarized election. And that is
back that up at all.
Yeah. Laura Curran, I believe, has held elective office here in America, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And Laura, you'll tell everybody what office you've held and who you are in a second. Noah, the minute you can get those poll numbers up, just slam them on the screen. Laura, tell everybody about yourself and comment or ask away, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning. I was Nassau County Executive on Long Island, Democrat. And, as I said the last time I was on, that was the one place where the red wave actually did happen in 2022. And we lost a lot of congressional race, all of them, actually, it's all red. But when I'm thinking about JD Vance and his cat ladies, it reminds me of Hillary and her deplorables. And if he doesn't deal with this quickly, it will have the same effect because number one, it alienates half the population. And number two, it kind of confirms people's suspicions about this person. Hillary was seen as an elite, part of the establishment, disdainful of those who weren't as educated or in the know as she is. And JD Vance is seen, it kind of confirms what women think MAGA is. And so it'll be interesting to see how he and his team navigate this.
Yeah. Laura, how much is your social circle in real life and online and social? How much are people talking about this?
They're talking about it a lot. I'm a woman of a certain age. I have friends who are mothers, who want to be mothers, who whatever it was. And it's even as I heard Megan say yesterday, Republican and centrist and independent women are talking about this as well. So let's see. I mean, as we've seen things change so quickly, we could be talking about something completely different in a week, but now this is a big deal.
Laura, in the spirit of two-way, if JD Vance called you, having watched what you just said, and said, Laura, what should I say? I want to set this right. What could he say or what should he say?
I would go on a neutral type network. I mean, maybe Sean would say it's mainstream media and it's all in the tank for Kamala. But I would go on like an ABC or CBS on Sunday morning and say, it was inartful, but I was trying to be funny, obviously land and talk and like what he has in his book, talk about the strong women in his life. His wife, I don't know why they seem to be hiding her now, like ashamed of her because of the color of her skin. Put her out there. She's amazing.
No. I don't know. I don't know if there's any indication that that's why she's not out.
No,
it could be her. It could be she doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, they've got young kids, and she's never done anything like this, and there's a lot going on in their lives, and daddy's away. So, All right, Laura, thank you for all of that. I really appreciate it. You guys want to comment on what Laura said?
I think she's got a good point.
Yeah, I agree. He's got to address it.
Sean, you said he'll address it in the next few days. Shouldn't he be addressing it in like the next few minutes?
Well, I mean, again, I'm reporting, not explaining.
I understand.
I made my views known to the folks about how soon I thought it needed to be addressed based on the comments, not just what Megan said, but the comments in the chat that I was watching at the time and see today as well. So I've made my piece.
Yeah. David, go ahead, please.
Thank you, guys. I think this Trump campaign's in trouble. I remember the Quayle situation. He was a drag all the way through. I happen to like Quayle, thought he was very good, but he was a drag on the ticket. I really think Trump ought to drop Vance. It would step all over Harris for the next 3 or 4 days. I would put in Nikki Haley. His ego probably won't allow him to do that.
David, let me interrupt you a second. David, have you ever voted for Trump?
I voted for him last time in 2020, and I voted third party in 2016. I'm going to vote for him. I'm voting for him this time.
Where do you live?
I live in St. Louis. We have a super hot congressional race in my district primary.
Yeah, and you don't make your pizza with mozzarella either, so you're a special part of the country. David, tell me why you won't think JD Vance should be replaced.
Because the press will never give up on this issue. It's the exact undecided independent voter, the suburban woman, that Trump has to do reasonably well on. And also men take this serious. Many of us have daughters and wives, etc. was an insulting remark. I know it was probably a joke, but it also would give Trump an opportunity to take over the media for the next 2, 3, 4 days. He would step all over Harris.
Yeah.
The other thing is, just think today, Vance should be on TV and local in Detroit and Milwaukee, Philadelphia, etc., making the case for student choice, for school choice. You talk about making a dent in the African American community, that would do it. But he can't go on TV because he would have to answer these questions.
David, are you the least bit tempted to vote for Kamala Harris?
No, not at all. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I'm the father of Jake, Sean. And I wish the Republicans had somebody else in there.
Yeah. So, David, I see in the chat, and I've heard from some other conservatives I've talked to, this isn't a story. This is just the press making a big deal about an old video. What would you say to people who say this isn't a big story?
I would say they're not a woman struggling to have children. They're not a single woman that doesn't see any eligible men to date or to marry, that are in their 30s and early 40s and very, very unhappy and depressed. It's a very serious problem in this country, and one that you just can't joke about it. And they can make the change. I think they could get rid of Vance and replace him, and Trump can spin anything.
Yeah,
and the MAGA would go along with it, and next week he'd be roaring along.
Yeah, I don't think they'll replace it, but I have to say, as a veteran Trump watcher, I thought his references to Vance at the rally last night were pretty half-hearted. Maybe.
I just one point there. Look, we're talking to David, who is a Trump supporter, and he is saying drop JD from the ticket. It is not just a one-off thing. This is percolating. It's a problem.
Just for a second.
Can we hold on one second? Just ask the producers. Can you take all of us down and put the poll numbers full screen? David, thank you for that.
Really appreciate it.
Great contribution. Thank you,
show.
David. Take us all down and put the poll numbers up full. And Sean, go ahead.
I just real quick, I go watch the Brett Kavanaugh movie. I mean, Trump doesn't just throw people aside. That's not going to happen.
I agree it's not going to happen, but I think Tim correctly highlighted David is not speaking only for himself. David is speaking for multitudes. And we're not saying this is the only issue in the race, and we're not saying that Harris doesn't have problems and Trump's still ahead and whatever, but it's a problem, and it's a problem that has emotion behind it, and it's emotion and personal emotion that transcends politics. Jennifer Aniston is not the only one who is emotional about this, and understandably so. It's amongst the most emotional things that anyone has to go through, man or woman, but particularly for women. And again, as was pointed out by Laura, it plays into one of the biggest problems that the Trump Vance ticket has. Here are the poll numbers. All right. Again, one poll. We haven't had very much credible swing state polling. It's registered voters, not likely. But again, if you're Harris, you got to look at this and say, good, because the goal, as I wrote this morning in my newsletter, the goal this morning for them is to have a super strong VPIC, a super strong convention, and come out into September where David Plouffe, or who's ever running the targeting, can say, all right, of the 7 states, which ones do we actually have a chance to win? And how are we going to try to win as many of those 7 as we can? These numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it doesn't have North Carolina, and it doesn't have the silver state, as I like to call it, because I can't pronounce it correctly. And as you know, I'm really a stickler for pronunciation. These 5, again, you'd have to look at this and say, and these are 2 ways, and Kennedy could end up being on the ballot in some of these places and hurting Trump more. You'd have to say she's in the game, right? She can. I mean, just the blue wall states are all margin of error. The other 2, 2-point race in Georgia, and even Arizona, 5 points probably is also the margin of error because of the way margin of error works. So, Sean, just say again, what do you think of these numbers?
Let's revisit this in 10 days. I feel like mental acuity off the table. People, I mean, this goes back to Tim's great analogy. People are just breathing a sigh of relief. We'll see how the dust settles after people figure out who Kamala Harris is and how she weathers a few of the attacks. But this is a sugar high. I don't think it still shows her down 5 in Arizona, 2 in Georgia, down in Michigan and Pennsylvania. Let's see. I mean, maybe this is really great for her, but I think we need to pump the brakes and recognize it is a sugar high. It's post State of the Union. It's post big mention. I mean,
You say
Yep.
sugar high, I say trajectory. But I will, Mark, to your point, Nevada, someone who has worked in Nevada and presidential cycles, I really want to see what the numbers are there, because Nevada was a very, very tough state for Biden, among his
Yeah.
worst among the swing states. So
I agree. I agree. I don't know why they didn't do it. All right. I unmuted somebody, but now I've lost her.
Jenny.
Jenny,
Yes.
tell us where you're calling from and what's on your mind, and who you're thinking of voting for, please.
Okay, from Sarasota, Florida, originally from Eastern Virginia. My question, does anybody know what David Pluff's, I guess, position is going to be? I heard he was coming back to take over the campaign, and then Monday, that wasn't the case. So I was just trying to find out what he's going to be doing.
Yeah.
And I will not, under any circumstance, vote for Trump. I'll vote for a ham sandwich. I've had to work with and for men like him. Makes me sick.
Jen, before we answer your Pluff question, how much is your circle people talking about the JD Vance remarks? Is that coming up in your life or no?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where are you seeing it? People talking about it, or are you texting, or?
Both. But they think, I mean, again, most of the people that I'm around are more Democratic leaning, and they think this is par for the course for somebody Trump would pick.
Right. Okay.
So.
As far as I know, there's conversations with David Pluff, who's from Delaware. I would predict that he's likely to come in, or somebody like him. Not that there's too many people like him, but as far as I know, there's been no deal yet. It was reported this morning by Politico that Jim Margolis may take over the ad making, and he's one of the best ad makers in America in either party. So that would be right in there with if they bring in Pluff. Those are two guys with a ton of experience. Tim, you know anything about the Pluff status?
I don't know anything about the status. I know that the first thing Kamala Harris said when she went to the Wilmington headquarters is she talked to the campaign manager and Jen O'Malley Dillon, asked them to stay on. I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that you add people at the top, but I think it's wise that she's kept the team.
My guess is, it's just a guess from talking to people, is Pluff would basically be in charge of message and battleground states, and Jen would continue to run the campaign and play a role in that too. But I think he would be in charge of getting to 270 electoral votes. Say again? What, Sean?
It's like he gets to be in charge of everything that matters. Battleground states, messaging, and he can be in charge of everything else.
Well, there's a lot to do, as you know. All right, we're going to stop. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Once again, lots of hands up. Love to see it. Sorry we didn't get to everyone. We do try to start and end on time. I may be back later today. Stay tuned on that. But Tim, Sean, and I will be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time, and into next week. If you'd like to sponsor this program, reach out to me. We're going to start making a little money off the morning meeting. So if you'd like to sponsor it, reach out. Otherwise, guys, thank you. Thanks for everybody who participated. We'll see you tomorrow.